So last year was a bit of a double whammy for the New England Patriots. Not only did the fans of the team and the team itself have to watch Cam Newton and the rest of the team have one of the worst offensive seasons in the NFL last year. Cam Newton was probably one of the worst quarterbacks last year. They also had to watch their former long-term quarterback, Tom Brady, win his 7th championship in Tampa Bay the first year that he left New England. It was a major blow to people who are huge Bill Belichick fans and people who think that Bill Belichick is the guy that is kind of responsible for all those 6 rings while him and Tom Brady were together in New England. However, after last year, after it took one season where Tom Brady didn't have a training camp, Tom Brady didn't have a preseason, Tom Brady didn't have any sort of real off season that he is used to having with the New England Patriots, he doesn't have any of that with Tampa Bay. He goes down and wins in year 1 and possibly looks like he could win maybe 1 or 2 more championships while he's still in the league with Tampa Bay. Now, things offensively weren't so bad. Well, they were really bad for the Patriots, but they weren't terrible on all aspects. They were 30th in passing, which is why I said Cam Newton was probably one of the worst quarterbacks last year. 4th in rushing, 14th in turnovers, 27th in points, and 19th in sacks. This team finally figured out last year that maybe it wasn't Tom Brady that was the issue. Maybe it really was that this offense was just completely trash. I think Josh McDaniels is one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL at this given moment. But at the same time, if you give him a receiving core that consists of Gunnar Olszewski, if it consists of N'Keal Harry, who is all but a bust at this point, if it doesn't have a real tight end, if it doesn't have a semblance of an offensive line, if your best receiver on the entire team is James White out of the backfield, and your best running back is maybe Damian Harris, maybe it's Sony Michel, we'll figure it out during the season. This offense was really bad, and it was really bad leading up to last year, and it was even worse last year than it had been before. And I think the poor play affected the defense as well, because even though they had some numbers that looked really well, 8th in passing, 10th in takeaways, 7th in points, they were 26th in rushing defense and 26th in sacks. Those are 2 numbers that throughout a long period of time, the New England Patriots have been really good at. And, even just 10th in takeaways, 8th in passing, 7th in points, this is nowhere near the kind of New England Patriots defense we have been used to seeing when they were in their heyday. So let's go ahead and talk about the guys that are gone from last year. And there are a lot of names who are not only just big names for the team, but, not just production-wise, but, just leadership-wise. You've got guys like Joe Thuney, Rex Burkhead, Damiere Byrd, Sony Michel, Marcus Cannon, and Julian Edelman, who are gone from last year. Sony Michel ended up just getting traded to the Los Angeles Rams. Julian Edelman retired. Joe Thuney got a big payday from the Kansas City Chiefs. Rex Burkhead and Marcus Cannon went down to Houston, and I don't know where Damiere Byrd went. I think he went to Chicago, but he's not really that big of a loss. But the other guys that I mentioned, especially guys like Rex Burkhead or Julian Edelman or even Joe Thuney to an extent, those were guys in leadership roles for this team, and those were guys in leadership roles for this offense. And now that they're just gone, it signals a little bit of a changing of the guard on that offensive side of the ball, and it's really going to be affected by another guy that I'm going to talk about in a bit. Defensively, they lost some decent names as well. Adam Butler, John Simon, Brandon Copeland, Terrence Brooks, and Jason McCourty. Jason McCourty and Terrence Brooks, 2 decent defensive players in that back end of the defense. Adam Butler, John Simon, and Brandon Copeland, 3 guys up front who are decent players for this team, but nothing really is hurt that was lost by this defense last year. Now let's talk about who is new to this team. And even though they did lose a lot on the offensive side of the ball in terms of production and leadership, what they did end up getting back was a very good boatload of talent. You have names like Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, Alex Redmond, Ted Karras, Mac Jones, Ramondre Stevenson. Those last 2 names in the draft, of course. Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne. I think Kendrick Bourne got a really raw deal from the San Francisco 49ers. He was one of the better receivers on that team, and they ended up just replacing him with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk in the last couple of years. But I think Kendrick Bourne has a really good chance to be the number 1 receiver on this New England Patriots team. He's a really good receiver. If you're a Patriots fan, you probably already know who he is. If you're a Niners fan, you definitely know who he is. But Nelson Aguilar is not a joke either. He was a really good player for the Las Vegas Raiders last year. He probably was the number 1 receiver last year for the Raiders. And then Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, that is kind of getting back to what the New England Patriots want to do. They want to have some tight ends on the field. They want to have two guys at that tight end position who are dynamic, who can block, who can catch, who can get out in open space and make plays for themselves. Those are two guys who are really going to be effective players for if Mac Jones ends up playing, which I think at this point it's almost a foregone conclusion that he is going to be the starting quarterback of this team. Once he gets on page with those two tight ends and Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar, maybe N'Keal Harry if he's still here, James White out of the backfield, this team is going to look really, really good on the offensive side of the ball. They did some really good things in the offseason on the defensive side of the ball as well. They added names like Henry Anderson, Devon Godchaux, Kyle Van Noy, Raekwon McMillan, Matt Judon, Adrian Colbert, and Jalen Mills. Now, the Raekwon McMillan addition, I was really excited to see that for the New England Patriots. They have not had a guy in the middle of their defense at that middle linebacker spot with that much speed in a long time. But Raekwon McMillan ended up tearing his ACL, I believe it was, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago by now. But the other names like Henry Anderson and Devon Godchaux, those are two guys who were good players. Henry Anderson with the New York Jets, Devon Godchaux with the Miami Dolphins. They're going to help out the running game. Kyle Van Noy is a really good player. He's been a good player for the Patriots before, so it's kind of just one of those things where the Patriots bring him back. Matt Judon is going to be the guy that really helps those sack numbers that were lackluster for the defense last year. And if it goes well for this defense and what they added on the defensive side of the ball, then they're going to be back to being a top 10 defense as well. So last year, the New England Patriots went 7-9. They were third in the AFC East, and they missed the playoffs. 7-9 actually seems like a successful year for a team who, like I said, probably had one of the worst quarterback situations. I won't just throw Cam Newton under the bus because he did miss some games last year, and it was manned by some games where it was Jarrett Stidham. It was manned by Brian Hoyer at times. So I'm not just going to throw it all on Cam Newton's shoulders. However, he was the majority starter of last year. And they had one of the worst quarterback situations in the NFL last year. There's really no other way to put it. Offensively, they were not great. Defensively, they were pretty much just above average in a lot of categories. So, I think 7-9, that just speaks to the kind of coaches that Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels are. It speaks to the... I don't know what else really it speaks to. I think it really only speaks to the coaching job that Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels did last year. If Mac Jones starts for this team, which, like I said, I think it's a foregone conclusion with Cam Newton landing on the COVID list, with Cam Newton just being an inadequate quarterback at this point in his career, I think Mac Jones is the guy, and he's going to be the majority starter this year. I think he's going to play really, really well. I don't see him winning anything like Rookie of the Year. I don't see him taking the Patriots to the Super Bowl or anything crazy like that. But I do see this Patriots team getting back to the playoffs. Third in the AFC East is almost that's like a tragedy in New England for that football team. Bill Belichick hasn't been third in the AFC East in I don't even know how long. So he doesn't want to lose to the Miami Dolphins in the division. That's a team that he's always just had success against. So I see this team going something like 10-7. If Mac Jones plays completely out of his mind and is the exact quarterback to replace Tom Brady up there in New England, maybe they go something like 12-5 and win the AFC East. That kind of has to rely on Josh Allen taking a step back with the Bills, or the Bills just in general taking a step back. But I think this New England Patriots team is going to be anywhere from 9-8 to about 12-5. They're going to have a winning record again. I believe that wholeheartedly. And we're going to see a different team than we saw last year. With all that being said, that's going to be the video for me. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you leave a like. If you didn't, make sure you leave a dislike. Any feedback at this point is much appreciated. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.